because Mill, well, so did Rousseau. They both saw the trajectory of where things are going, and Mill thought unbalance is good. Rousseau, I think, thought unbalance was not good. In my old age, I have become I'm more attracted to Rousseau. I think the
Well,
technology thing is completely out of control. I don't own an iPhone. I've never used an ATM. I would say God's worst invention by far is the phone menu.
really?
Yeah, I consider it worse than intercontinental ballistic missiles.
I mean, I'm with you there. It is immensely frustrated that all these restaurants used the pandemic as the excuse to stop doing paper menus, even though we found out like 3 weeks into the pandemic that surfaces weren't very important. But
now is the professor the horror of AI. It's become, for any professor who wants to assign the paper, it's become a tragedy.
Oh, no. I am. It's funny. I'm generally somebody who I'm generally enthusiastic about technological progress for more or less orthodox Marxist reasons. But generative AI actually makes me a Luddite because I think it's
a profoundly inhumane thing.
It's soulless.
It's an extinction level event for higher education. I don't know how
has been extirpated. I'm coming out with a new book. I shouldn't say anything negative about the book, but we were struggling with a cover, and I laid down a law. I do not want a cover generated by AI because it's inhuman. It's inhuman. The soul has been extirpated.
Absolutely.
So these sorts of things.
This is where we all go reactionary on the show immediately, right? Take the Colorado Coleridge rule.
More.
Robbie, to answer your question, of course I have. Everybody who assigns papers has had papers written by AI turned into them.
Do you know what the horror it turned into? The whole thing, I have to say, as a teacher, was this past semester.
Oh, yeah. Horrible.
How many wars I had with students, and it created a new aspect of animus and acrimony in the class. I had to sit down one after another students, go through it line by line. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? And the students were, at least some, were confident they could brazen it out. And I would not relent. I have still pending in the fall, assuming my job is not eliminated. I have 3 students who I still have to engage in war with over this issue of who wrote the paper. So I never had that. When people plagiarized, it was so obvious in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And secondly, you can always...
I had somebody send in something that I had written before, and I was like, oh, gosh.
Amazing.
I know we have to end, so Jason Miles, I just want to say I don't want to disappoint you. I will stop talking.
But you can always tailor a question narrowly enough that there would be no possibility of plagiarism. But now you can tailor a question so narrowly, and AI will produce a very competent reply.
It's genuinely awful. I mean, we were talking about the harm principle earlier, and Mill's difficulty in applying it. Which, by the way, I meant to say this earlier. I would ultimately, I was kind of running this half defense of him earlier. I'd ultimately argue. What I've said in other places. I actually wrote an essay about this last year called John Stuart Mill on justice and utility. And, basically what I argue there is that I think his best and most interesting instincts sort of go beyond his simple utilitarianism that he was officially committed to, and that ultimately what he's grappling with is, I think, in order to properly apply some of this stuff, you have to just admit you're weighing entirely different values against each other. But in any case, that's a larger discussion.
That's what judgment is. Judgment is the faculty of weighing.
Yeah.
As Russell says, Bertrand Russell says at one point, on any significant argument, there are always arguments on both sides. There are always arguments on both sides. I teach Supreme Court law. I actually think Plessy versus Ferguson was a well-argued case. I think the worst case ever argued in Supreme Court history is Brown versus Board of Ed. There's no arguments, just like an administrative decree. But in any question I teach a Supreme Court course on.
Thank God for bad jurisprudence then.
On race, sex, and privacy. The landmark Supreme Court cases in race, sex, and privacy. And in fact, by the end of the course, everybody is convinced, you know what, on things where I'm absolutely have a strong opinion, like abortion or gay marriage or what was called back then same-sex sodomy, there are arguments on the other side. There are always arguments on the other side. And that's where the faculty of judgment is basically the faculty of weighing. You have arguments on both sides, and then where do you come down with those arguments? That's what judgment is. Judgment, what distinguishes judgment from reason is, as Professor Chomsky liked to tell me, abstract principles just don't get you very far. Because in the real world, principles clash. So his classic example, at least to me, was it's wrong to lie, obviously. But if a rapist knocks on your door and says, "Is your daughter in the bedroom?"
Yeah, right.
Well, there's a clash of principles.
Not if you can't.
What?
Yeah, Kant famously bites the bullet on this. But yeah, says line is line is line. But okay, this has been fascinating, which is one reason we've let it run.
And you know what? It was very substantive. I'm not as knowledgeable as Matt. I never have no problem admitting my limitations. But
It's a real pleasure, though. I mean, we've never met before, but I really enjoyed this conversation. I just want to say.
Yeah, I wish we had more time. You know, the one part of the conversation we never got to really was Mill and freedom of speech.
I know.
Yeah.
Right?
I had a whole bunch of things ready just for that. Yeah.
That was kind of, well, you know what, guys, this is not an unsolvable problem. What we could do is start an email thread and find a date that we can do one that's just purely on that. So, in fact,
if you have Matt, if you have there's a new edition of my book. You're holding up the old edition. There's a new edition which I'll just show you.
Oh boy!
Nice, yeah. That's my this is the
first edition.
Yeah, this is what I think before I had you on the first time, your handlers sent me this. So
now it's the second edition, and it's rapidly approaching a lethal weapon. If I drop it from the 6th floor, if you're below on the sidewalk, you probably won't survive. In any case, in it, I have a long chapter on Holocaust denial and trying to apply Mill's principles.
Yeah, well, I actually read the part in the first edition. There's like 6 pages on Mill and Holocaust denial to prepare for this. And yeah, this is definitely let's get into it. I want to do the full devoted free speech conversation. So we will absolutely put a follow up on the books. We'll figure out a good time that works for the 3 of us to do that. But
and one other thing, I did a public presentation with Cornel West and former president of the ACLU, Nadine Strassen, on cancel culture, free speech, and Gaza.
Yeah.
And we clashed on this issue, which Mill doesn't address.
I wasn't aware you had strong feelings about that.
About what?
He's joking.
Yeah, I'm joking. Just never mind.
Wait, strong feelings about what?
That cluster
Israel,
of subjects
Palestine.
you just mentioned, that's
About what?
he said Israel Palestine, the
Oh.
I was just being very sarcastic. I'm sorry.
Right. But we clashed on the question of whether war criminals have the right to free speech. And it went on for quite a long time. And I was the dissenter there. I strongly believe in respecting the dead. And I consider allowing a war criminal to speak to be a desecration of the memory of the dead. And Cornell and Nadine and I, we went on at some length on this particular question. So maybe in the future.
Yeah, I'm actually. I think I'm actually on the West, Nadine side of that. So that'd be an interesting thing to get into in the follow-up episode on free speech. You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive postgames on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.